if it was a good day, and it didn't even need to be as good of a day as another guy to make the news, right? If I finished third, it was news. If a guy finished third, it wasn't the news, So that's a really good thing. That's a positive. But also if I, had a bad day, or if, I got mad, or had a little bit of emotion show, that was also news too. And so, there's both sides of it. And I truly chose to focus on all the good. And I liked being different.
Welcome to the Resetter podcast.
I love it. I love all your content. I can only hope that this helps some people, as that is the mission.
Yes, totally. 1,000%. So, okay, here's where I'm going to start with. So I did a little research on you. I decided to Google you yesterday and learn a little bit about your upbringing. And so my first question, I'm sure everybody asks you this, is how the heck do you get into car racing as a teenage girl? Like, can we just start there? How did that come about?
Yeah. So all the way back, my mom and dad met on a blind date at a snowmobile race when they were like around 20. So my dad was racing snowmobiles and my mom was going to the track because she had a friend who loved going to the races. And so actually that's who set him up on a blind date. Her name is Sue, which is why my middle name is Sue. So they went on the blind date, hit it off. And I came along about 10 minutes later and they got married, had me. And so my dad kept racing, and he raced all the way until my sister was born, which was only 2 years after me. And so we were looking for something to do together as a family, to spend time together. My dad worked a ton and my mom stayed home. And so naturally racing was an option, but really it was somebody in our neighborhood that raced go-karts. And that kid went to our school, and one of them was in my sister's grade. And so she's 2 years younger. And so we went and looked at the go-karts, went to the racetrack. Brooke, my sister, was the one who really wanted to do it. And I've realized in my older age now, not old, but older, that I'm really up for anything. Like, I'm just kind of sure. Yeah, I've learned through some DNA testing that I have high dopamine receptors. So like everything is fine for me. Like, let's do it. Yeah. So I said, let's do it. And it turned out to be something that I was really good at and I liked doing, and I kept doing it. And my sister quit in the first year. And so my mom did it for a little while, and then, that's just a contentious situation. And so trying to race with my dad's super intense. And so then I kept going. And then when I was 16, I moved away to England. So I started when I was 10, and it was really just a way to spend time together as a family.
Okay. And at 16, you moved to England to race?
I did. Yeah. I lived there for 3 years.
So, yeah. And you dropped out of like school, or you did school in England? Like,
I only did school in England. I only did school in England first. So I went there and it was junior year, and it was the first semester of junior year. So I couldn't drop out of school yet, or I didn't drop out of school yet. I was gone half of that first semester. Like, I was there for the first month, gone for 2 months, and then there for the last month. And then I decided to go live in England full time. And so then I did drop out of school after Christmas that year. And then I got my GED, my good enough diploma.
Oh, you know what? Some of the most intelligent people that I've met doing podcasting are people that did not have traditional school backgrounds.
Isn't that interesting?
And it's so interesting. And, I think so much of school just creates this very linear thought pattern. And the minds that I have fallen in love with are the ones that are like, just see learning and life in every aspect of their day, not in a book or in a structured program like that. So I think it's amazing that you didn't go to traditional school.
Well, thanks for saying that. I mean, of course, I want my doctor who's cutting me open to have gone to school. Probably my lawyer. It'd be great if my lawyer, had a good, law education. But there's just not many professions that really, I feel like, are necessary to go to school. I think there's so much to learn in life. Not only do you learn about the craft that you're interested in, you get into it right away, you learn about it, but then on top of that, you get so many other life experiences too. So in school, you're just there's still so few things that you're experiencing that you would get normally in the world. So I recommend, if anyone's interested in anything, just get going. And on top of that, the only other thing I'd say is travel. Like nothing helps grow up faster than travel.
Oh, amen. Amen to that. Okay. So then I'm sure this is the second most popular question you get is, what is it like to be a woman in a sport like that? Like what was, and we're going to take that and talk about your hormones after that, but no offense, but hormonally we're so different. I can't even imagine what your hormones were doing in that kind of male environment.
Well, I mean, shoot, I was on birth control for most of it, so I'm not sure my hormones really did do anything.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd be curious if they really have much of a rhythm when you're on birth control or not. But what was it like? My answer is I don't know any different. So like I've never been a guy out there, so I don't know what that's like. But I mean, I think that it was just like all eyeballs, meaning if it was a good day, and it didn't even need to be as good of a day as another guy to make the news, right? If I finished third, it was news. If a guy finished third, it wasn't the news, so that's a really good thing. That's a positive. But also if I, had a bad day, or if, I got mad, or had a little bit of emotion show, that was also news too. And so, there's both sides of it. And I truly chose to focus on all the good. And I liked being different. Yeah. I loved being different. In fact, I didn't like it. I loved it. I really was capable of dealing with that stress and dealing with the pressure and dealing with the attention. Like it just didn't, I mean, I'd get nervous, but it didn't derail me. It actually helped me like narrow in my focus.
And has many women come after you?
God, when I was in IndyCar one year, I think there was like 5 of us out there in the Indy 500, which is a crazy amount. And, last year there was none. So, or this past year, there was none. I can't remember if the year before, maybe there was one the year before, but it's not like it's all of a sudden just been an onslaught of, women that are out there. So, I don't think I think it's one of those things. It's like the stock market, it's kind of just steadily going up usually, but there's dips, so it's like dips. So I don't know. There's not that many out there right now.
I think it's really interesting because I think as women, we're at a really interesting time in history. Yeah. I read a book earlier this summer. It was called the Dark Moon Goddess. And it was all about the matriarchal society. And so this is BC that we lived in a matriarchal society where women's intuitions, where ceremony, where connection was really highlighted. Yeah. And then we moved into a patriarchal society that we've been in, which has been very focused on this is the way a man does something, this is the way a woman does something, and is very almost the opposite. We were suppressed our intuition, we were hung for being ceremonial and thought of as being witches. And now I look at where we're going, and the world I see is a blending of the two. How do we blend those two? Yeah. But when we blend those two, you have to say, okay, well, are we going to see more women get into places like car racing? And are we going to see women on football fields and, places where we typically haven't seen women? We're seeing women now, whether you agree with this or not, in very high political places. And so I think what you did is a little bit the way I see it as this meshing of the feminine and masculine coming together in a beautiful world.
Thank you for sharing that. And I totally agree with you. And I'm going to share, since I am such a hippie at heart, I was in Sedona this weekend and I did a past life regression. And the thing that I saw was basically that I was this like Native American medicine woman, and that I was doing, people didn't want to buy, or they were not like selling, they weren't buying my medicine, my like herbs and tinctures and things. So then I just started doing ceremonies, and that lasted for like 10 years. And then the men didn't like it because it was all women coming to ceremonies. And so in this regression, this is me visualizing this, by the way. I've had regressions where people tell me things, and then this was a regression where I told the story. And I stopped. Like, I just stopped what I was doing because I was either going to be killed or I had to like go leave, and I didn't know where to go. And so I couldn't keep doing it or else I'd be dead. But the message was, and this is why I'm saying it, is that what came through so strongly was that my vision of my life became so like dark, like gray, like there wasn't really a lot of substance to it anymore. And I just kind of died at like 40 years later, like 30, 40 years later, old, like 70 years old, just kind of like that. And so the point is that I died anyway. Like, because I wasn't doing what I should have been doing and what was natural and what was like nourishing and feeding my soul, I died anyway.
Oh my gosh.
So do what you love doing.
Oh my gosh. I got chills. So this is, we're going to get into health here in a moment, but I just want to say that this is like my vision for women in general. And just, you know, and I know we have both men and women that listen to this podcast, but we live in this society that has created these little labels for us and containers for us. And so many people have a passion and purpose in their heart that they don't let flow out of them because of the way the society has taught them. Like, you're this color, you're of this socioeconomic background, you're this sex. So these are the containers you go into. And what I want to see in the new world is that we have no labels, we have no containers, and everybody from the day that they're born is searching for what lights them up. And it doesn't matter their sex, their sexual identity, their socioeconomic background. So I love that idea that you're going to die anyway. So
if you're not doing what you should be doing, you're dead anyway inside. So you might as well do it. And isn't it amazing? Like, we've been working together for a little while, and, you know, even just from watching your videos and getting to know you that way, and then interviewing you, like, the passion is so obvious. And isn't it amazing? And I know you work your butt off. Isn't it amazing how when you're doing what you love doing, that there seems to be almost endless energy? It actually gives you energy.
Yes, thank you.
It doesn't rob you of energy. It actually, and I've done both. Like, I've done things that are, you know, take a bunch of energy and I'm depleted. And I've done the things that take a bunch of energy and I'm actually rejuvenated. Yeah. And so, you know, like, I can do 5-6 hours of podcasting in a day where I'm doing the interviewing, which is always harder. And I can get done with it and be like buzzing, like high from it. And so I think that's another important message, is that no matter what the energy level it takes to do a job, if you're in alignment with what's really true to you and what lights you up, like you said, you have endless energy pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to a bunch of people, hormone experts, that were saying that, you know, you can see people who are dopamine depleted. They don't have all the resources to make enough dopamine, but they are super energetic. They're super passionate. And it's almost like once you start to identify what lights you up, you just keep searching for that, wherever that is. Yeah. And if it comes in the form of work, what a blessing. It's such a blessing. And then the other thing that I have to tell you, I was thinking as you were talking, so I was born in 1969 and I grew up in the 70s. And I was the total tomboy, and the sport that I loved was baseball. So I was the only girl out on the baseball field. In fact, I have a picture, because I grew up in Malibu. I have a picture of, of Sonny and Cher watching a game, because their daughter, that I think is now transitioned, right, to a man, was on my team. This was what it was like to grow up in Malibu. But totally. Here's the funny thing, is that when my hormones started to kick in around 7, I was such a tomboy that I was looking for a sport that had a female figurehead, like somebody I could go and look up to. And at the time, the only feminine figure in an athletic world was Chrissy Everett. And so I saw her and was like, okay, she's athletic, she's a female, that's what I should do. And that I switched sports to tennis, but I always look back on that, and I'm like, God, it took one female in a figure in a big public platform to help me see where I fit in. But in the end, maybe I would have done something different if I had had more positive female mentors in sports. So
yeah, well,
there's interesting.
you're leading the way in so many ways, but there's always going to be aspects of our life where we need some 4-minute mile people,
Yeah, there you go.
we're it in
Perfect.
some ways and other people are it in other ways.
Yeah.
And somebody's just got to do it first. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, as the 4-minute mile story, somebody runs it, it's never been done. And then all of a sudden that year, like 20 more people did it. Like
Right.
it just needs to be put into the collective consciousness that it's possible. And then
Yeah.
changes things. I remember my friend, actually, it's ironically enough, my friend who I was in Sedona with, she told me when I first met her, I first had dinner with her and I was telling her about sort of what I did. And, she didn't know a ton about it. And but she did know, she was aware. And she was just informing me that she's like, you didn't only just change like women, but men too, like the effect on the collective that had, seriously.
Yeah.
And we talked about that this week when we were together. And I'm like, yeah, when you said that, it really made a difference because I didn't think about it like that, but it changes the narrative for not only someone like, Chrissy, for you, but also for men too, to be able to see what's possible. And it changes their consciousness too.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's so well said. So well said. And that's part of the new earth I want to create, is where we just are seeing that anything's possible. Doesn't matter your sex, color, socioeconomic, whatever, that anything is possible. So,
Totally.
okay. So now I really want to go into your health, because here's what I'm going to tell you is that I watched you do your explant surgery on social media. And that was like the first time. I don't know how you came up on my news feed. And I was like, wow, like not only are you getting an explant, not only, do you have a lot of eyeballs on you, but you're like, fuck yeah, I'm getting these things out. And this is why. So let's talk about, like, where did you figure out that toxicity might be an issue for you? And where did you start to see your health change, that it really needed more attention?
Yeah, I usually, when I'm telling the story, I can go back to the very beginning of when I think I noticed it, but I think it's more important because I thought some things, but I dismissed it. So I actually start the story with why I went to the doctor, which was I went to the doctor at the beginning of 2021. Spring of 2021, because I lost my cycle. It got delayed a couple months and then I skipped, and it was just kind of like, this is probably a bad thing. I also felt like in the fall before that was sort of like March time of like January, February, March time of 2021. But like November of 2020, like I was like, my body changed a little bit. I felt like I had gained some weight. My hair is just not the same. Like just like things that
How
I'm
old
like,
were you?
I was, well, at that point I was 38.
Okay.
And so I was just like, something's not right. I just don't like that. What's going on? Weight loss completely was like not possible. It just was like, just not possible. It didn't matter what I did. I mean, I remember even in 2021, later on, after I'd been to the doctor, I was like, I went on a trip to Cabo with some girlfriends and I was like, okay, I think I need a siesta for the liver. Just like we did a boat trip one day and I just decided to not drink for like 30 days. And that would be enough to for sure, like change the body.
Yeah.
And because whenever you do that, you're also more conscious of other things like the food and all the other, it's just like you work out more, like it just tends to be a real waterfall effect. And nothing changed. Like nothing changed. I didn't look any different. I didn't feel any different. And so I'd started to really kind of dive into what could be going on. I had my labs done. And the first thing that came through was that I had, an underactive thyroid. And so I thought, oh my God, this is it. I'll take a thyroid pill and everything will be fine. This is why my hair is not as good as it used to be. This is why I gained some weight. This will be everything. And that didn't do anything. So after a couple of phases of increasing the dosage and nothing happening, this is just with my OB, I was like, and my hormones were low. We checked my hormones and they were low. He was like, you need a functional doctor. So I worked at the functional doctor for a while, but in the meantime of getting that functional doctor, I had, my boyfriend at the time gave me an awesome book by Ben Greenfield, Boundless. And so I started getting interested in biohacking and all the things. And so, I was like, oh, I'll interview Ben. And so I asked Ben at the end of the interview when we were done, I was like, if I wanted to know, like, what to eat, when to eat it, how to work out, when to work out, all those kinds of things, like just like dial me in. It was like, all right, do these tests and then we'll talk about it after, which we actually ended up doing for another podcast. We just talked about the review, which might have been boring for people. It's interesting in that the information you get, but it's not your body. So, but it's still interesting to see how deep the information can go. And so I had started getting all these tests, like stool tests, Dutch tests, like stools for like, parasites and GI and just like, all kinds of, your microbiome, Dutch tests for hormones. I did a blood draw for checking for food sensitivities for leaky gut. I did a genetics test for certain genetic pathways. I did a couple others. There was like 5 or 6 different tests. And environment, sort of toxins, and then with my functional doctor, we added one more, which ended up being like a really interesting one, which was a provoked urine test for heavy metal toxicity. And so, and that's how I got onto you, was toxicity. Like fasting and hormones all came later. Like there wasn't many people speaking about the process of detoxing from heavy metals.
Yes.
And so that's how I got interested in you last year. And so the heavy metal report came back and I had like through the roof mercury. Like the threshold is 5 and mine was 170. And I had heavy like thallium, cesium, and lead and one other one. And then mercury were all elevated.
There was one, I'm trying to remember because I wondered, cadmium, I want to say, I wondered if you got it from car racing, like from brake pads. You and I talked about that. There was one that I was like, wow, this came from a unique environmental source.
That's very likely. I mean, there were times in my career at the end, the last couple of years, I was getting migraines and it would be easy to like trigger the migraine. Like, let's say I could get it anyway. It was rare that I would just get a migraine just from the driving. But let's say, I would, but let's say I had like one drink on Sunday night after the race. I would have a 2-day migraine. So it was very easy to trigger that. And so I thought maybe I'm getting carbon monoxide poisoning.
That's
and
common for racers.
I checked my would it be my CO2 level before I got in the car. And then I got out of the car and immediately got on the golf cart and to go back to my bus, which is how it always goes. You get out of the car and you walk straight to the golf cart and leave. And someone was right there with the test to do it again. So I immediately did it after I get out of the car. And I think it went from like 0 to 3. And they were like, that's not a big deal. They're like, smokers are at 10. So I realized that, probably that's not the problem. But that could have been the initial phase of some of that heavy metal toxicity, which when we loop in the breast implants, which I got when I was 32, like I had them now for a few years. And so that could have been accumulating in my blood and in my body. And in my, it goes into fat cells, right? Mercury and lead goes into the bone. Lead is more
lead goes
hereditary in the bone. And so, who knows, but anyway, so I got that heavy metal report back and that was high. So I went through a phase of like doing gut rehab for 90 days, cutting things out of my diet, taking certain pills. I had a level, like a 7 out of 10 dysbiosis. So like gut bacteria was not perfectly balanced. And so that I was doing that. That didn't help. My gut biosis at the end of the year in November, like these were tests done in the summer. So about 4 or 5 months later, my dysbiosis was 10 out of 10 now. I had another bad strain or another strain of bacteria that was unwanted. We never checked my leaky gut again because at the time my doctor was like, it's not going to be better. And I was like, why am I spending 90 days doing all this stupid shit? Like taking all these pills, and
that's not motivating.
Yeah, that's not motivating. And she, and I know that it's hard on the body, but she was like, you're training for the Boston Marathon. This isn't going to help you. We need things to calm down. So my provoke test later in the year was better. It was better because I had done some chelation, but man, doing like chelation and running the marathon, like heat really gets me. Like as I've seen recently, even like working out, being back in Arizona, because I spent 2 months in Indiana getting out of the heat. Like my body, and also on top of that, now I'm doing so many other modalities. It zaps me. But anyway, to get back on track, I did a whole bunch of tests in the summer, really got going on, many different protocols. I tried, then at the end of the year, I got onto another doctor who was actually passed on to me by Ben Greenfield. And so then I did some NAD, like loading phase of NAD, like 5 out of 10 days.
Crazy
I tried,
amount.
yeah, that's a lot of NAD. And I felt it was hard. It took like she came to my house to do the drip. And I mean, it took like 3-4 hours each time, just by the time she got here and got the IV and, did the drip, took a couple hours. So, that was time consuming and I didn't feel good doing it. I mean, you have to take Zofran. It's so rough. And then,
I mean, you like, one of the things that I love about you is you're like, okay, let me do everything. And I'm not just going to do everything a little bit. I'm going to just go all in. Like you definitely did everything. Like
I did peptides too. I thought peptides would help. Peptides didn't do anything. And so basically now you've heard me stumble along a whole bunch of tests and a whole bunch of protocols and a whole bunch of different things. And then finally, so now we're entering into early 2022. And it was like January, February. And I just finally hit a wall and I was like, nothing helps. Nothing makes me feel better. And I was like, I for some reason started watching more breast implant illness stories and videos on YouTube and following like Instagram stories of people and watching their journey. And I just was like, I got to get these out. So I made a call in March. I remember I was on vacation in Telluride and I was like, hi, I'd like to make an appointment. They're like, okay, we're booking consultations for June and surgeries for October. And I was like, I mean, here we are in August and it's been done for months. So at first I was like, and I don't know what to say, so I'm like, well, we better get the ball rolling. And so, I said, if there's anything that comes up any sooner, please let me know. And so, I was booked for like June, and then an opportunity for, surgery came up in June. And so I put a down payment for that. And I hadn't even done the consultation yet. And then they said, I mean, I did get some little extra special service. And then
I was going to say, you didn't pull the Danica Patrick card.
I didn't pull it. They allowed, they gave me and then I remember I was in, then it was May and I was on my 40th birthday. I mean, my goal for my 40th birthday, probably like anybody else in their 40s, like, I'm going to be in the best shape of my life. I was in the worst fucking shape of my life. Like I was in the worst, like, inside and out. And so, so I was on my birthday trip with 9 girlfriends on a yacht in the Exumas and it was heaven. And I'm like busy on the phone because they're telling me now that there's a May date, an April date that I can get in for, the trip was in April. My birthday is March 25th. We went the first week of April and there was an April 27th surgery date. And I was like, oh my God. And so I told them I have to leave 8 days after the surgery because I had to go work the Formula One race in Miami. And I was like, is that enough time? And so then I'm in the back bedroom with I don't remember who took the pictures, maybe my sister, I don't remember, but I was like, hey, I need you to take some pictures of my boobs. I need to send them to the doctor. They need to check and see if I'm basically like 8 days will be enough to recover. They need to size them up. Exactly.
Literally.
And so I have like a sunburn line because I had like a tube top on and it was like day 1 and I had got a sunburn right away. And so I looked ridiculous, but I sent them and they're like, you should be fine. So so then I booked it for the 27th, got them out, and immediately. So the thing is that I had my surgery appointment because again, I got in last second. It was at 2:30 in the afternoon. If I was better at fasting, I would have felt better all day.
Yes.
And
very true.
I got home by like 5, and that night, I'm like, by the time I finally kind of came out of the drunken haze from the drugs, like, I remember I like touched my face and I was like, oh, wow. And like, I had my own, like, oil was being produced on my skin for the first time. And I just forgot what it felt like. I just didn't even think about it. My scalp had been dry for years. Like I didn't notice. I knew to notice my scalp, but I didn't notice that. I didn't think about the whole body being in effect.
Yeah.
And so when that happened, I was like, oh my God, like my body's saying, thank you. And I woke up in the morning and I mean, we're like 12 hours out from surgery. And I'm like, I've got drains because they
That's
just
what I
have to
saw
do
on
drains.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have to do drains. And I'm like, they're so small. Do I really? My worst scar is from the drain on one side. And so, so I'm walking around the kitchen and I'm like pacing in the kitchen and my mom is here to take care of me. And I'm like, Mom, I have so much energy. I don't know what, I mean, like
Oh.
we should go grocery shopping. And like, so like, it's like 7 a.m. and 7:30, we're like at the grocery store and I've got a big sweatshirt on to like hide my giant drains on my body. And, I felt amazing. Like, I mean, the 48 hours, the drains came out because there was so little fluid coming out. I mean, that night, 48 hours later, I probably shouldn't have, but my mom and I shared a bottle of wine. Like, we played Monopoly and I was like I was able to like do yoga shit and put my hands behind my back and stretch. And I did an interview with the doctor because when and obviously 48 hours later, getting the drains out and feeling so amazing was the day that I also shared, I shared that I had done the surgery and I had no plans on sharing it unless it did something. Like I had been kind of sharing my medical journey a little bit and and my curiosities about the body, but I was like, I'm not going to share anything until it works. And trust me, like I thought the gut protocol would have worked. I thought the thyroid medicine would have worked. I thought the peptides would have worked. I thought the NAD would have worked. I thought I thought every protocol I tried would have worked, every one of them, and they didn't. And so it wasn't like I thought, so of course, here comes the breast implants getting removed. And I mean, I think hopefully this works. And it did. Like, that's the thing is that it finally did something. Yeah. And so I shared that and I was like, oh man, Mom, should I do this? And, she's like, well, you're probably going to tell everyone anyway. And I'm like, true. And so I just hit send and I'm so glad I did. Oh. And, but I mean, I was doing an interview with the doctor for Good Morning America, like, 4 days later because it had just caught fire. And I'm so grateful because there's so many people that have, passed along their gratitude for it. And there's been really good stories since.